Alright, what is going on, people? What is going on? Let's see. Are we live? Alright, let me just tune into this. Share it. Un momento. Just share this from my page. Almost done. All right. Whoa. إن الحمد لله وكفاه والصلاة والسلام على رسوله المصطفى وعلى عباده الذين ارتضى ومن بهداهم اهتدى وبآثار أهل المدينة اقتفى وبعد فالسلام الله على القوم أهلا وسهلا بكم ومرحبا حوانيين لايت bienvenidos a todos خوش آمدید بخیر راغله people and of course swagatam. Right, what is going on? It's been a while. I've partially due to some technical issues which we're in the process of resolving, that I'm switching back from internet providers, people. And last week I did have I was a bit under the weather. Nothing really serious or anything like that, but you know, sometimes you just have a malaise, you're just not yourself. You need to just kind of just chill. It's got to be done, people. It's got to be done. What's going on? What is bothering mi gente? Facebook and social media, people. Those of you watching this through YouTube, if you'd like to post any questions, it's going to be on Facebook, I'm afraid. I've the comment section, I can't really see it from here on YouTube, so any questions you can pop over to Facebook and post the questions there. Ahlan wa sahlan, Sumay, Riz, Fonam, Zafar, Marhaban, Frobbery. Alright. Frobbery G. What is going on? What is bothering the awesome people of social media? Where did that, you know, I've got quite a few questions lined up actually, which I will be taking a look at as well. But what is going on? Oh, Ashfaq Ali says it's spring in New Zealand. Well, alright. Saraj Sumair says you not. I don't know what language. You not. You yes. You am. Right, so alright, Yorkshire. Alright, and masala, hopefully. Well, I'd like to share some thoughts later on today on there seems to be a scandal, you know, scandal. Nothing too masaladar, nothing with too much masala. But those of you that know about the translation of the Quran by Dr. Musharraf Hussain, it seems to have triggered a problem, you know, the problem within the Sunni community, you know, the Sunni community. So I'll talk a little bit about that towards the end. A bit of the masala going on. So what is going on, people? What is going on there? And yeah, so that's but I will also discuss it in maybe next week in a more detailed elaborate view as well, because I just only got the video today. I got this video of the kibar ulama Ahl Sunnah who have gathered together to condemn this translation of the Quran. Muslim efforts are just amazing, ain't they? They're like, yeah, let's all get together. We're going to let's hold an emergency, a Cobra meeting. And they'll travel and they'll get together, and it'll always be for a condemnation. So let's unanimously now, in unison, let's condemn. So we'll talk a little bit about that later on today. So what else is going on till Sid? Ahlan wa sahlan. Momo is in the house, people. Momo has gone back to his studies in Cairo, doing it. Right, Sid is doing it, people, doing it. That's our Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu expert. I would give just the initials, but then people's attention will just go somewhere else, because I'm sure they just call it something like BJJ or something. I don't know why they use these in this day and age. This is not wise, you know, this one. So everybody's going to be like, what? Our what expert? And Sid, you're going to get bombarded with all these extra, all these people from India and Pakistan will be messaging you on Messenger saying, hello, hello expert G. Send pics. So to save our Sid from that kind of a predicament, we'll have to say the full term, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Can you imagine the guy who turns up at the wrong place? He's not looking for the Jiu-Jitsu. But he ends up there, and he sees the changing rooms, and he thinks, "Oh wow, oh it's a group thing, is it? Oh, we get oh wow." Only £10 a session. So that's why, ladies and gentlemen, it's always important to be well informed. Those kind of things. So, well, what else is going on? So, Sid is saying you're killing it. He's lucky I haven't advertised his club yet. He's gonna get a whole load of just kind of desi dudes just turning up. They're gonna be like, just like smoothly kind of, is this the place? This the place? Okay. You know it, right here, or should we go by that cabinet, or right here? Why this one so aggressive? You know? This one not nice. So what else is going on, people? What else? What is on the minds of Sumer says behind the tree. we got the experience. Next time we're driving past some of these parks, and we'll be like, somebody, Sumer, is that you behind that tree? Well, what's going on, people? What is going on? Asim Ahmed said, "Shuru karo bhai." यहाँ पे सबके सामने. Right. So any updates on Mulvi Limbada ji? I didn't. Omar Ali said, this is what happens in ARC sessions. Toba, 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 toba. People, let's concentrate, concentrate. So, Mulvi Limbada, I don't know. I mean, is there something going on? Is there some kind of a scandal? Is there any gossip? Any masala? Do share with me these kind of things, people. I won't lie, I'm not like those people that will kind of, I'll be honest with you, I'll enjoy the gossip. You get some people, they'll be like, oh no, oh, astaghfirullah, where's my tasbih? I was doing dhikr. I'll just be honest, like, if you got the gossip, share it. I'll be like, no way, nah, really? So, let's focus. Al-Kabatai is watching. Ahlan wa sahlan. Kashmiri Thai. Ahlan wa sahlan. Aswa. Hamaji, how's it going? Right, so what else? Questions whilst we're getting into this. I did put down some questions. I try to make a habit of it. That, if this, by the way, disconnects in between, I'm just waiting for this to the YouTube seems to have disconnected. Salam. Alright, we're back. Apologies, people. If this disconnects, just bear with me. It's the internet. I have cancelled the whole thing and I've brought the package once again with BT. Virgin Media are a joke, honestly. So I do apologise if it disconnects time to time. They just said that, look, we can't really do anything about it. Too many people are using it. And it's basically ridiculous. So I have got the contract. It's one of the days this week. BT are coming to fix it back up. Cool. Did I tell you about that, guys? Did I tell you that when I called up to have the BT thing done, check this out. The guy on the other side, he, midway in the conversation, he recognized me. And he was like, wait a minute, are you Mufti Abu Layth? I was like, oh no, guilty. I've been caught out, people. So, yep. So I said, yep, guilty as charged. And then, to be fair play to him, he then gave me a discount. Even though before he said that, no, there's no other discounts. They said, oh, Mufti, oh, I watch your stuff. Oh, yeah, of course. I'll give you another discount. I was like, you're doing it, man. You're doing it. So cool, people. So if there is any interruption, hopefully it's just hang in there. Bear with me. This should be the last week that happens, because it's during this week I'm having the internet replaced. Right, so let's take a look at some questions, people. What is going on? There's a question on, what should we take here? Shall we take a religious one to begin with, like a holy, to get in the mood, the kind of astaghfirullah, to get into the holy religious mood, ibadat. So let's begin with a question on ibadat, people. I'tikaf. So i'tikaf is when people, somebody said, no, there is no other discount. Yeah, that actually happened. because I said that, look, as a returning customer, can I get any additional discounts? Just, it's worth asking. So no, 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 no such thing. Oh, Mufti Abu Layth. What if it was a hater? What if, you know, I have to sometimes think about these. What if it was a hater on there? And he just said, wait a minute. The premium just doubled. And we're going to definitely interrupt your live stream every week. We're going to throttle that thing. So anyway, oh God, the world, people. Let's take a nice question from somebody concerned, unlike us, ungodly people, somebody who is concerned with ibadat. So somebody who's concerned with worship, the good amongst us, those who still give us hope in humanity, that we think, vah, people like that still exist. So somebody had asked, can we do i'tikaf outside of Ramadan? I'tikaf is when you spend a certain amount of time, X amount of time inside a masjid. Okay, so usually it's customarily, conventionally understood to be like a day and a night. Doesn't have to be though. And the person asking was saying specifically for women. And specifically for women. And can they do that at home, or can it be for a short period of time? So what is this i'tikaf? Seems to have really bothered this poor person. So yes, the good news is you can, if you like. Wow, that was easy. Yeah, don't worry about it. Yeah, just go for it. A bit more convincing. Let's do a bit more convincing. Right, so there is a difference of opinion amongst the scholars. So some madhabs do feel that i'tikaf is only done for an entire day and an entire night, and must be accompanied by fasting during the day. And that is, you do find a lot of the Malikis there, you find a lot of the Hanafis thinking this way. Then you have some people like the Shafi'i madhab who feel that no, i'tikaf can be for just a moment of time, so long as you have an intention. So there you go, that's the kind of difference of opinion on it. In all honesty, my personal understanding is that these things are like i'tikaf and stuff like that. I think that they were understandings that really emerged later on. That's what I feel. I don't think in the Prophet's time that this was generally the understanding of the people. I think there was some basis for it. So I know the Prophet ﷺ spent a certain amount of days from Ramadan inside the masjid and things like that. So this was there as a basis, but this thing of just generally going into a mosque, kind of secluding yourself, cutting yourself off from the outside world, did this exist as a concept or as a practice is a better term. I don't think it did. Hence, Imam Malik says that in his time, people never used to do i'tikaf in the masjid. So, and he lived in Medina. So, yeah, so I mean, I'm a bit too, ambivalent about this i'tikaf thing. I think it's like an inherited practice of like, kind of trying to be like monk-like, kind of like a monastery. So, but I would say if it makes you feel better, sure, I mean, have the intention, but it doesn't really make a difference. Since you're going in the masjid anyway, just think this is a nice thing I'm doing, and once you've finished, you finished. You don't need to make a separate intention like I'm going in now. I'm now also not only going in the masjid, but I'm also doing i'tikaf, and I'm also praying salah, and now I'm going to, retreat from this masjid, and now I think the problem with this is it turns you kind of robotic, and then people get struck down with OCD. OCD, people, OCD. It's not an illness or it's not something you contract. Although it's something that you, by obsessing, you kind of create this obsessive personality. Okay, so I feel that people become all, oh my God, did I make intention for this? Oh my God, did I have intention? Oh my God, did I... I mean, you don't do that in any other aspect in life. Just think about it. There is no other aspect in life where you do that. You don't say, oh my God, did I make the intention to open the door? Or did I just open it? Oh my God, did I make the intention of getting dressed today? Or did I just get dressed? You know, it's like, this is the only thing where people... They've seriously, and I know from one perspective that one may say, what's the big deal? But the big deal is the damage it causes. So people have become so obsessed that they can't live. Their lives have become, you know, OCD, obsessive compulsive disorders for people, and religion, rituals. These two things are like, that's like petrol and just a match to it, basically. Not even a match. This is dynamite. And this is added kind of combustion here, people. So it just does not go down well. Their lives become a misery. I've spoken to some people in the past, and they... I spoke to this person once, and he said, I pray my salat at night. So this person, great person, he said, I begin praying, getting ready to pray my Isha at midnight. So I said, okay, fair enough, as you do. And he said, and I finish around 4 a.m. And I thought, what? Do you, like, are you from the time of the Salaf? Is that what? Yeah. Do you just recite, like, the whole Quran just once, or do you recite it twice? I thought, wait a minute, what? 4 o'clock? And he said, yeah, I finish at about, sometimes 5. He said, sometimes it goes beyond 5 a.m. And I thought, seriously, what is that about? Like, what do you do in your salah? Tell us sinners what it is that you do in your prayer. Not that we're going to copy it, because nobody's going to be praying for 5 hours a day. I'll just be honest with you. So what it was, as it transpired, this poor individual spent about 1.5 hours just doing wudu. Seriously. And then he spent about maybe anything between 2 to 4 hours praying just 4 rak'ah of Isha, because he would have to continuously break them. He'd have to kind of break his salah and say, oh no, I got that wrong. I got that wrong. Oh, I got that wrong. I got that wrong. And then he would be so exhausted that he would kind of crash out, and then this was impacting his, I can't remember whether it was his work or his studies now, but it was impacting his life. And I was like, well, no bleep expletives there, that no, Sherlocks, that would impact your life. Of course it would impact your life. So I told him, look, don't worry about it, man. Just pray your 4 rak'ah and go. Don't. But people, it's so difficult for them to let go, to just become relaxed. Yeah, so you have to... So avoid these kind of things, people. OCD is too dangerous, I'm telling you. Somebody said, Niyatul mu'min khayrun min amalih. Of course, I agree that, look, it's the intention, but people get obsessed here. And it's OCD, they can't detach from it. You see, OCD, obsessive behavior, is like the anti-behavior. It's like, if you like, it's like a parallel of addictions. So, addictions, they make you act out in order to crave that euphoric high, for example. And this is like the antimatter to that. So in OCD, what happens is the kind of urge here, it's to dispel this immense anxiety by acting out, and thereby having some satisfaction. It's a nightmare overall. I would say seek medical assistance, try to get some help, and try to just not worry about, and divorce, and this is a nightmare, people. Oh my God, people who have OCD and then they worry about talaq. They're like, oh, did I say, did I think it, did I, uh-oh woman, you're divorced again. No, but it's not a laughing issue, people. It's like they get really, really obsessed, and their life becomes a nightmare, honestly. And you can't, no matter how much you tell these people that, look, just don't worry about it, relax, but they can't relax. And they feel, right, so that's enough said, let's move on. Do you believe that intention has an effect on the reality? Intention simply means that you know what you're doing. If somebody was to stop you, in the Maliki fiqh books, they mention that if somebody was to stop you and ask you, what are you doing? And you would have an answer. That is what intention is. So if I was like, and you stopped me and you said, what are you about to do? Say, I'm about to take a drink. That means I've got the intention, that's all. There you go, people. Ice cube in there. Right, so what's going on? What's going on? Is religion about shunning the world? Religion is not about shunning the world. Religion teaches you to be a part of this dunya. People, we are in this world. I mean, if somebody wants to be ascetic, they want to distance themselves from worldly things and become a kind of hermit, a recluse, they can. I mean, but I don't feel Islam encourages that. It doesn't necessarily prohibit it either, but people think Islam or religion encourages that. It does not. Wasim Ustad, ahlan wa sahlan. Right, some people, a few serious words about the situation in Kashmir. Okay, let's say a few of these words and then we'll come back to the questions. There's been a huge tragic scenario, a huge kind of tragedy taking place with the whole Kashmir crisis. Those of you that are not familiar with what's going on, India has really just kind of, it's upped the kind of oppressive tactics and strategies that they've deployed. They've moved in the thousands. I read something like 38,000 more army personnel there. In addition to whatever hundreds of thousands that they've already got. It's a ridiculous amount. It's such a militarized zone. Now they've increased things like the kind of not only stops and checks, but the arresting people without having a kind of a warrant or so, or without searching premises, taking people away for certain interrogations. They've shut down the communication networks, they've shut down the internet, shut down electricity and things like that, the basic necessities in several places. And they've just really intensified the kind of hellhole, unfortunately, that it is. I mean, may Allah make things easy for the people. I really am at a loss for words. I don't know what to say, even. You see these kind of things, you hear about them, and you think, like, come on, like in this day and age, I don't know. Honestly, it surprises me sometimes. I mean, it surprises me and it doesn't, but it sometimes when you think about it, it's just like, it gets you that, wow, that in this day and age, seriously, people resorting to, you know, such tactics. For how long will you suppress a people? It's not right. I mean, under any circumstances. But for how long? And how do you think history will remember you? Do you really think you'll kind of pull this off? I don't. It just makes no sense to me. Sometimes people become so blinded by their kind of bigotry and their hatred, and unfortunately the far right kind of mentality, right wing Hindutva kind of mentality that we're seeing in India right now, and many Indians, there are many Indians, non-Muslim Indians, many, countless, that are so disgusted by this kind of stuff. And I've read several kind of papers and things written and published by journalists about saying to people like Modi that, look, how do you think history will remember you? How do you think this will just go neglected over time? And I have to say, I've seen quite a bit of an outcry and support from the Sikh community in India towards the Kashmiris, and I think that's something, you know, very praiseworthy and commendable. And obviously they've seen their own struggle with the Khalistan kind of movement, the Khalsa. But my point is that, look, why can't people just get along? Honestly, I don't... I mean, I get the fact that you can't get along with everyone. I get that. But really, these kind of tactics is a... You know, what would you really get out of that? And what's shocking is the kind of the open advertising. So this kind of obsession, and some of the politicians have this thing of, you know, oh my God, like Muslims have been doing this for so long, we need to retaliate now. They've been ruling. I mean, what is wrong with people? I mean, it's not like this guy that's walking across the road was ruling over somebody in the past. You know, I know, let's get him. Or let's get that woman. And this obsession with Kashmir and light-skinned women and, you know, oh my God, let's go there. And it's, you know, it's full of these kind of beautiful women and politicians advertising it as go there and marry them. I mean, I don't think that's quite how it's going to work, but it's seriously, it's you know, it's a tsunamic kind of tragedy that is engulfing that part of the world. May Allah just make things easy for them. I really am at a loss for words, because sometimes, you know, you see things. And this is another problem of this day and age, really. You see things and you're in such a helpless state because there's nothing you can really do as an individual. And it becomes quite... It's like a harrowing experience because you're seeing things and you can't really do anything about them. So I suppose our du'as, you know, and whatever little we can do, inshallah, I suppose we do. Ameen. You know, yassar Allahu lahum. Ameen, ameen. Right, let's get back to some other questions. Right, so let's see if there's any. Can you make dua for all of us? Of course, Sayyid Miya, inshallah. Likewise, people like you, the amazing, awesome people that do come on my my lives. May Allah forever keep you smiling. Ameen. Can you please, Samantha Price has asked, can you please explain Islam's form of purgatory? It's an interesting question. I think that there's some kind of a parallel to the purgatory state. So purgatory is really a Christian concept. In that sense, as purgatory, that look, that okay, maybe God will still, that, you know, not every, if you've been baptized or you've accepted the Saviour, Jesus Christ, as your Saviour, then you're not absolutely doomed. But what if you've done all these terrible things and so on? Then maybe God will kind of cleanse you by this kind of state that you'll be in. You'll be in this suspended state, but so it's not exactly hell, this kind of limbo state, and then following that cleansing process, you'll be allowed entry into paradise. So this is a kind of purgatory state, a limbo state. Now, in Islam, one can draw certain parallels. I'm not saying I believe that it's going to be like that, but I'm saying that some people can draw these parallels. One is with this thing, with, I suppose, what is known as the A'raf. Okay, so the A'raf in the Quran is another, but it's fairly ambiguous. It's not quite clear what the A'raf is or are, but these people in this A'raf kind of state. And some people said this was like a purgatory, that they were kind of in this limbo state, and then God's kind of got them ready for paradise. And so some people took that, I don't know whether they were influenced by the purgatory concept and then read into the A'raf in the Quran, in Surah Al-A'raf, or was this something that they just coincidentally arrived at as well? So there is that state. One could argue that a similar thing is, some people feel that, look, because you're Muslim, you'll always be saved. Now, you'll go through some punishment, but you'll always be saved. That, in some ways, bears a resemblance to the Christian kind of baptism and salvation, assured salvation. So I think these are some similarities, and one could even extend into saying that would one consider the kind of barzakh, the life of the grave and so on, if you feel that the life of the grave is a testing state? Because many people may feel that the life of the grave is also a testing state where people are getting punished or pleasure and things like this. So can that count as a purgatory? I think all of these, just as far as theories are concerned, can show mirror some aspect of a purgatory. That said, I don't feel that it's necessary to believe these kind of things like that. I don't feel that, for example, the punishment of the grave or things like this are necessary beliefs in Islam. I feel that many people have held them, but it's also, I don't think that the evidences for it are that strong. There are some things that do exist, but they're not entirely categorically clear. So similarly about this, I don't, you see, I'm not too pleased with this kind of baptism culture of like, it doesn't matter what kind of a human being you are, but so long as you've said some holy words, you will always attain, you have this insurance policy. You're fully comp. You're going fully comp, basically. So by stating that, look, because I've said La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah, now I could be the worst of the human beings, but there is somebody who is a great human being, a philanthropist, somebody who's spent his life or her life looking after humanity, caring for them, curing cancer, for example, spending day and night and doing things for the betterment of humanity, but they did not say La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah, but I have an insurance policy, whereas they are just eternal damnation. I'm not comfortable with that personally. I don't feel, these kind of baptism policies, I feel that we've partially inherited from maybe the Judeo-Christian heritage of thinking that you're always saved. I think the importance, you have to be a good human being. This was what the emphasis was. And I feel that there's been a kind of paradigm shift from, it's not about being a good human being, it's about just being Muslim by just saying La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. Now once you've said it, you've got it. I've got my document, this, here's my policy certificate. Bahar mein jao. Whatever I do, it doesn't matter. I've got my kind of certificate. So I feel that this is problematic, you know, because if you look at the Quran doesn't necessarily reflect that. You see, the Quran seems to be very stern and harsh against certain things. People who commit murder, it seems to say that that's it. You know, this is an unforgivable. But then people would say, oh, but if you're Muslim, you know, oh, but God didn't really mean that. You know? So you think, you know, if you have a reading of the Quran by removing the blinkers, it seems to be emphasizing these kind of ethics and values, and that they are important. To live up to the standard is important, not this. But then the theologians, obviously, as they've come along, they've kind of structured it according to their theology and everything, right? So. Somebody said, what about a hadith mentioning shahada is a condition to go Jannah? Yes, of course. I mean, I'm not saying that the shahada is of no value. Nobody is saying that. But I'm highlighting that there is a problem. You see, to get to a solution, you have to first of all identify the problem. And I feel that there was a huge, immense amount of extortion, oppression being conducted through this narrative, this dark, superstitious narrative of many gods and things like this. I think that you have to question your own day and age. I mean, does that even exist in this part of the world, for example, today? Maybe in some parts it does. I don't think it necessarily exists as an overarching kind of narrative in this part of the world. I would feel that many people actually have a quench and a thirst for God, but they're just so fed up with religion, that's all, with a capital R. So this is why, you see, you have to understand that the shahada, what was the shahada? Was it simply a utterance? Or was it a concept? A kind of a deeper meaning? What was it? Because I know the theologians will say, no, it's just the utterance. Just saying it, even if you don't understand it. Just saying it, you know. That doesn't quite tally up, I think. But that's, I think, some food for thought, people. Right, so let's take some other questions. What's going on? What is bothering the people? What is bothering us? Right, I've been asked some questions. I know it's Muharram. And people had asked about the Shia tradition of tatbir, which is the self-flagellation, people. So what is the ruling on all of this? And what do I think? What are my thoughts about Muharram, about the martyrdom of Hussein, radiallahu an, or about these kind of things? What do I feel? So they'd asked me to share some of my thoughts. So cool. I mean, let's take a look at that. So first of all, I disagree with the way the Shia do things on this. That said, this tatbir, let's look at this tatbir first of all. Let's take it one at a time, briefly. Tatbir, what some of them call it, some of them do refer to it as idma, as in causing to bleed. And I'm not quite, it's not me, the ulama of the Shia themselves are not quite sure where the term tatbir comes from. They understand it comes from the word tabar, but it doesn't. That's with a ta, by the way, not a ta. But they're not quite sure. Some people say maybe it's to do with certain sounds, or maybe it's to do with. Some people feel that it was an inherited word that was then Arabicized. Nevertheless, it refers to the kind of self-flagellation, the whipping and beating yourself and cutting yourself and all of this. Where does this stem from? some Shia who advocate this. So there is a difference of opinion about this people, about tatbir, about self-flagellation, with amongst the Shia as well. So amongst the Sunnis, it's qat'an haram. Okay, it's forbidden to kind of beat yourself and whip yourself like that. I don't mean in a in a pleasurable way. This is so they. I mean, oh my God, some of the videos I've seen, I've been like, right, okay, how do I unsee that? I saw one where this guy, he took this blade to his back, and then as he kind of like, the seconds that followed, because it must have taken a few seconds, his back, as he stretched, just kind of opened up. It was horrible. It was basically like watching something like Saw or Hostel in the making. It's like, what the hell? Why would you? So according to, I personally strongly condemn this tatbir thing. I feel that it is a huge. It's something that really drags down religion. I feel it's massively embarrassing that Muslims do this. Some Muslims. Okay, so that's my kind of thoughts on it. Now the Shia are divided on this. They're not united on this. So just to be clear, there is a difference of opinion amongst the Shia when it comes to tatbir. There are many Shia ulama, ayatullahs, they're kind of maraji' fiqhiyya, shar'iyya, they're kind of marji'as who have condemned and said it's haram. There are many. So it's not a unanimous thing that all Shia are up for this. They're not. And there are some that support it. Some who've said it's permissible, some who've said it's good and you should do it. So amongst those people who say it's good, they've based it on, I think what they generally base it, they base it on this, obviously this sentiment of trying to feel, you know, this empathy of feeling the pain and suffering of the Karbala and of Sayyidina Ali radiallahu an getting hit with a blade in it because he was struck down by Abdurrahman ibn Muljim. Now, the strike was a blow to the head with the sword. So that kind of is the blades they use is reminiscent. Also, there's a narration which is actually a weak narration, but they seem to accept it, I think, or those that do permit it, of Sayyida Zainab, who's the sister of Hussein, radiallahu anhuma. Now, she, upon hearing the martyrdom of Hussein, in this narration kind of struck something, hit herself out of kind of like shock, that, oh my God, and she kind of hit herself and blood came out of her head and things like this. This narration is not sound, it's just something somebody said. It's actually a weak narration generally. But those Shia that do encourage tatbir base it on Sayyida Zainab as well. So this is some of the evidences that they use. Now, there are many people, like I said, who condemn this from the Shia, including people like Ayatollah Khomeini, who declared it unlawful in Iran, and I believe it's still unlawful in Iran today. It's actually illegal. And then there's been other kind of Ayatollahs, Khomeini, and a few others that have kind of given the same ruling that it's haram, that there's no basis for it, and things like this. And some of them have said that even if there is a basis, but it's not permissible. So I definitely, that's my thinking anyway, that there's no basis for self-harm. And it's just so, such a horrid kind of depiction, if you like, for people who ain't Muslim. I feel that it really scares them as well. That what kind of a religion is this? And I just feel it doesn't really tie in with the Islamic sentiment. The interesting thing is that it was actually most likely, if you look into the history of tatbir, it seems to be something that was inherited and I think it was from people who lived in the Caucasus, so they had converted to Islam, and I think then to Shia Islam, but this is several centuries ago, and they brought this practice down towards the kind of what would be modern day Turkey and then Iran and things like this, and then it kind of caught on and spread like wildfire. So that's to shed some light on that. That said, I think some Shia have introduced an interesting campaign, and I've spoken of this previously, called it's the Imam Hussein campaign for blood donation. And I think that's an interesting campaign. I definitely think that's very good. So if Shia do want to kind of shed blood and things like that, I think they should donate blood. Why not? And regular Muslims as well, if you want to donate blood, that's always a great thing to do. It saves lives, it helps people. So that's something great and definitely worth doing. Right, so that's as far as the Tatbir is concerned. The martyrdom of Hussein radiallahu an, I mean, of course it's a tragedy. I feel unquestionably, I think everybody would accept that it's a tragedy within Islam. Personally, I'm not somebody who's too much into the kind of folkloric traditions. So I don't feel that we need to, personally, that we need to commemorate or we need to have certain functions or events. I don't feel we need to. If people do them, it's up to them. That's the kind of person I am. You see, I'm not really somebody who's so big on folklore or on this kind of folk traditions and folk kind of ceremonies and this whole thing. To me, that's more culture, tradition. It's not really religion per se, as in the faith, the connection with Allah. If people want to host these kind of events, they can. The problem is it becomes something where there's kind of like a peer pressure, blackmailing kind of thing, that if people ain't, then oh my God, it's like they have no value for this deen. That's not true. I don't think you can be valued, but your kind of sentiment for this deen can be quantifiable, or it can be kind of taken into account by how many days you commemorate something in a year, or ceremonies that you conduct and things like this. I think these are just kind of rituals that some people do. And then there's this whole split issue where people are saying, should we begin the 10 days of Muharram by commemorating the death of Sayyidina Umar radiallahu an? Because Sayyidina Umar radiallahu an passes away, I think, a few days just before the beginning of Muharram. I think it may have been like 2 days before or something like that, or 1 day before or something like that. And then I think he's buried on either 1 day before Muharram or on the 1st of Muharram. So some Sunnis have tried to bring that in their scope to kind of say, well, and then this has caused a huge reaction among some people saying, oh my God, why are you bringing this this into it? And then some people are saying, well, we need to also speak well of Muawiyah radiallahu an, so we don't, so we can distinguish, and all this kind of stuff going on. I just feel that all of this to me is just folklore. All of this to me doesn't really hold much value. I feel your sentiment is what is in your heart. You don't need to host an event to kind of, I'm just speaking about myself. I'm not saying that, if people want to do, they can do whatever they want, and they are doing whatever they want. But to me, these things don't dictate your level of iman or your love and appreciation. They don't do that for me personally. So that's as far as that is concerned. I think this Shia-Sunni debate is not something that can be resolved. What's interesting is I've seen a lot of infighting recently amongst the Sunnis about those who feel that you should give preference within the Sunnis to Ahlul Bayt. So it's like a kind of like a Shia slant on, but within a Sunni confine. So that they're saying that we should give preference to Sayyidina Ali radiallahu an, and Hussein and the Ahlul Bayt over the other companions. And then this has had a huge fierce backlash from some of the Sunnis as well, in saying no, you know, we should definitely stick to the order that it is, and Abu Bakr first, and then Umar and Uthman, and then Ali, and we must also kind of commemorate Muawiyah radiallahu an, and the whole thing. And it's led to some vicious, well, I think ridiculous infighting. I mean, I just find it, I don't know, I don't know whether it's age, people, I don't know whether it's, I find these things just, you know, from a safe distance, because I'm not a part of any of this stuff, people. And I just find it so amusing, weirdly amusing, that people are actually fighting. Like, what is this even about? Like, this is what religion means to people now. That who, you know, what was this? What number was this person? And what was he? And no, he must be 3 and not 2, and he must be 2 and not 1, and he must be... I just find this like, wow, like in some sense, this is still the kind of idols of old, just with a new veneer. You know, if you catch my drift, I don't, obviously it's not shirk or anything, but I just find it absurd that this is what religion has become. Let's move on, people. Joe Gavirez has asked a question, and damn, his question disappeared. I tried to... Oh, how did that happen? Why can I flick through so many comments? Right, okay. Do the Malikis hold the opinion that the night prayer ends until Fajr? Can you give an example of istihsan? Right, Ishaq Mela has asked this question, and somebody, Muslim man, is asking about free will. Right, okay, well, he's asked so many times now. We'll come to free will. If God wills, we'll get to free will. Hold your horses, hold your horses. Right, so, okay, one question at a time. So, Nam has asked some criteria for women to look for in a spouse. Guys, send your pictures quickly, upload them, send them here in the comments. Send your pictures and the criteria and what you got to offer, and what we could do is we could just rate them. Right. Somebody. Right. So. Well, okay. Let's take the questions one at a time. Right, before I forget them completely and entirely. Right, so the Malikis and Salah. Right, so the Malikiyah, School of Medina, there's a disagreement amongst themselves on when does the time for prayer end. What I follow is the general understanding of Imam Malik in the Muwatta, that one prayer lasts until the next one comes in. So in the Muwatta, Imam Malik says, وَقْتُ الصَّلَاةِ مَا لَمْ تَدْخُلِ الْأُخْرَى, that it is time for a prayer until the next one does not come in. Now, I know in the Mudawwana, Ibn al-Qasim kind of disagrees with that, and he restricts some of the timings. I don't personally go with that opinion. I go with what is in the Muwatta of Imam Malik, that it is the prayer of a time until the next Salah kicks in, except for Subah, which finishes with sunrise. That said, what I would say is, in this part of the world, if you do not wake up for Subah, this is like when people are just getting ready to write the fatwa of kufr again. They're like, just say it, Mufti, say it, God damn it. Right, so what I would like to say is that, look, relax yourselves, first of all. Relájate, right? Tranquilo, right? there is no obligation in Islam to do things like set an alarm clock. Okay, now you can set an alarm clock, but there's no obligation in Islam to set an alarm. Even if it means you know you won't wake up. It's not an obligation. I'm not joking. I mean, I'm not lying about that. There is no obligation for an alarm clock. So if that be the situation, then I do feel that in line with the hadith of the Prophet, that as you wake up, you just pray subah. That's just the reality. That's how it is. I feel that I don't feel that there's a problem or a clash within the Sharia with that, given our context that we are not a people that wake up generally at dawn in this part of the world. Is that not what the companion said to the Prophet? Tell me, people, is that not what the companion said to the Prophet? He said to the Prophet that إِنَّا قَوْمٌ لَا نَسْتَيْقِظُ إِلَّا بَعْدَ طُلُوعِ الشَّمْسِ. We are a people who do not wake up until after sunrise. He said, we're not those people. That's the rest of the Arabs. Us people, he was saying, and he was from Arabia. And what did the Prophet say to him? The Prophet said to him that فَإِذَا اسْتَيْقَظْتَ فَصَلِّ. Then when you wake up, pray. So I would say, well, that's the words of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And I know the scholars will say, oh no, not allowed, la yajuz, la hadha min khasa'is, it's with this person. You say, why? Lima. The Prophet never said to him, يعني هذا الحكم إنما يخصك ولا يخص غيرك ولن يخص غيرك, and this is just for you, and it'll never be for anybody else, or هذا, this cannot be for the people generally, or this cannot be للمسلمين عامة. Why? I'm just saying, he said إِنَّا قَوْمٌ. He never said just me. Because I know Abu Ja'far al-Tahawi and some other people, they try to come up with, oh, he bumped his head. And some of these scholars try their excuses. And some of the blags are like, you're like, you could have tried a bit harder there, to be fair. So they're like, this guy hit his head, or he got hit in some battle or something. And what it is when he used to go to sleep, he'd go into a deep sleep. So the Bechara had a medical condition. You think, acha. Shukriya Tahawiji for your quick prognosis to the medical urgency at hand. However, the actual hadith said, shall we just go back to the actual hadith? Lo samaht, Sheikh Allamatul Dahar. Right? The actual hadith reads, Inna qawmun. We are a people who do not wake up until after sunrise. So people, فنحن نقول نحن كذلك قوم لا نستيقظ إلا بعد طلوع الشمس. We also are a people who don't wake up until after sunrise. So what I'm saying is that you do not need to, I'm not saying you need to do that. By all means, if you set an alarm, then you can set an alarm. But if you don't set an alarm, there is no obligation in Islam to set an alarm clock to wake up. So whenever you wake up, you can just pray your subah. According to the hadith, according to the sunnah. I am not saying this, it's the hadith speaking. So you must pay the attention, right? So this is not me, people. Don't react towards me. This is the teaching. I'm just a messenger conveying the message. There it is. So no, you're not sinful. So you wouldn't be sinful for that. I don't believe you would be. The hadith is clear. So there you go. So that's tying it in with this day and age. Jack Malik Bawa says, Is it Islamically allowed to swear allegiance to the Queen or any other state political figure? Of course it is. What kind of a question is that? Right, look, let's just look at Jesus, alayhi salam. And everybody turns to the crucifix they've got in their room. You kafirs, that was a trick question to catch you out. So, yeah, kuffar in our midst. I'm joking. Right, so, let's look at Jesus, alayhi salam. Look, did Jesus, rebel against Caesar? Did he? Against the Roman state? Did he not say, render unto Caesar what belongs to Caesar? Did not all the prophets, generally, that we see stories of, or those that are mentioned, Moses with Pharaoh. Now, Moses did not come to disrupt the rule of Pharaoh. He had no issues with Pharaoh ruling and doing things like that. He just wanted the Israelites, that's all. It was never a political message. This is, unfortunately, the illness of the age, that some people have become obsessed with power. And they feel that Islam is about power. And until we don't have control and authority over people, until danda, the stick, until we don't get that, then nobody will ever come to Islam. Well, and I don't get this obsession with power. What is the obsession? Like, what do they want to do with this? Like, what? Yeah, we're ruling now. And what? Like, can you seriously envisage religious people ruling something? And by religious people, I mean the general Exhibit A. If I got a... I mean, can you seriously imagine I would hate to be in any kind of country or government or anything that, as in part of that state that is being ruled by people like that. The worst of people, honestly, are no way on earth. Needless to say, I'm sure they would execute me. Be like, first of all, day one, the first thing, before we, as part of the constitution of the new state, would be that we must, first of all, get rid of this deviant called Mufti Abu Layth. And it must be a public execution. Me, I'd just say, oh no, I've done Tawbah. I've done Tawbah. They'll be like, too late. Your Tawbah can't be accepted. Oh, God. Well, it's crazy, man. It's crazy. But yeah, so this obsession with power, that actually brings me to a question I wanted to take a look at, actually. It ties in with knowledge, right? Now, people, the irony of knowledge. This is complex. Right, so now we're ready for some complex talk, people. Right, the irony of knowledge. I'm sure there's more than one, but what I would like to discuss today is that knowledge, the less you have of it, you find in people a certain disposition, a certain characteristic, that the less they have of knowledge, the more confident they feel about their knowledge. And the more knowledge that you possess of something, the less confident you feel about that thing. This is also referred to as the Dunning-Kruger effect. You thought Mufti Abu Layth does not study. The Dunning-Kruger effect, people, the Dunning-Kruger effect. Not Freddy Krueger, but similar. So this effect is where ignorant people are overconfident about the knowledge they have. So they will express it in the clearest, the most stark black and white representation that they can. As fact, they will say that this is as bright as day. And those who actually possess knowledge of something will come across almost uncertain or lacking a sense of certainty, because they actually understand the complexities and realize that it's difficult to speak with certainty, because they know that there is no such thing as certainty. So they're trying to be as true and as honest and transparent as possible, but they come across as lacking confidence sometimes. Or not as in personal confidence, but confidence in the result, as in it's not certain. So this is from the irony of knowledge. So you find this at times, and you'll get, this is why a lot of what I teach, it's difficult, because when you come across people who will present the counter position, the kind of anti-position to what I say, they will present it like fact. This is this is so clear. And you're trying to explain to them, well, actually it's not that clear, because the whole Quran, the discourse, the kind of holistic, and they're not interested in any of So this is really an irony of knowledge, and it's referred to as the Dunning-Kruger effect. And it's found in other fields as well. It's not restricted to the Islamic or religious kind of experience. But yeah, definitely, I feel that that's something, I wanted to just share some words on that. And I find that the true, somebody that is true to himself or herself with knowledge struggles to kind of portray themselves as being certain, you see. And that's why in the Quran, إِنَّمَا يَخْشَى اللَّهَ مِنْ عِبَادِهِ الْعُلَمَاء, that truly they are that it is people of knowledge that are kind of truly fearful in a true sense of God, or of the understanding of God, conscious of God in that sense. That they don't want to just misrepresent things. They're trying to be as accurate as possible. And I think that's an amazing verse if understood like that. And this is why you'll find that many people in the past, like from the Salaf, they struggle to say things were haram. So you could take the fatwa of Imam Malik, for example. So many of them, let's say the Mudawwana or things like this, well, at least 30,000 masail in the Mudawwana. It's very difficult. Or you could take Abu Hanifa's work, I mean not his works, but transmitted by his student Imam Muhammad. It's very difficult to find them saying this is haram. Imam Malik will say, La yu'jibuni, I don't like it. No me gusta. In other words, La yu'jibuni. And he'll say things like, Akrah, I dislike this. Or, this is what I prefer, or it's better not to do this. But seldom will he ever say that's haram. Because they knew it was difficult. Sufyan al-Thawri used to say that I find it difficult to say, to prohibit something, because I always know of an opinion where it's permissible, or some argument that fights for or defends its permissibility, that action. He said, I find myself struggling to prohibit anything. And that was from the vastness of of his knowledge. And on that note, I was having a discussion with somebody yesterday, and it's interesting, just, keeping that in mind, Sufyan Thawri's kind of statement and statement from the Salaf, that power and authority, when you have power and authority, most people, and this would make an amazing kind of sociological study, most people feel that they are only exercising power or authority in a prohibitive sense. If you give somebody authority and they're allowed to exercise it, they only feel that they are exercising it if they do so prohibitively, like in stopping people from doing things, or in telling people off, or in any kind of prohibitive steps, not in a permitting kind of context. They don't feel that that's using authority. And that's an amazing psychological observation. Just think about it, that if you gave somebody authority, they feel that it's the don'ts and the do's, that is what exercising authority is, not the allowing side of things. And I was having this discussion because somebody was speaking to me about a work colleague of theirs, and this person would go out of their way to always, who would listen, they kind of like, not auditors, but they get a say on whether your certain policy, whether the company will pay out or not, for example, on a certain claim. And it's up to this person to kind of approve it. And they would say that this work colleague would go out of their way to kind of fail the claim. Even though people have been, let's say that they've got issues with their home and, they're trying to claim for some home insurance for some damage, but they will go out of their way to say, well, actually, and it's not like that, it's their personal money. And it's not like the person, the claimant, hasn't been paying for that policy. They have. But when it comes to the crunch, this particular assessor would always try their best to almost block their claim and to decline it. So we were having a discussion on this, and I said, well, you see, from a psychological perspective, it's because of power. There is a power trip at play, that you give somebody power and authority, and if they can wield some authority, they go mad with it. And people feel that they can only exercise power often when they're preventing or stopping, or they don't relate terms like permitting or being permissive with power or authority. And this is why, when you look at the Salaf of this ummah, people like Imam Sha'bi, and he's from like senior to people like almost like Imam Malik and so on, in terms of presence and age and things like this, although he was from Iraq. But the point is that when you look at those kind of imams and other people from the Salaf, they would say that anybody, and Sufyan al-Thawri and Sufyan ibn Uyayna, they would say anybody can make things haram. True knowledge is in saying that things are permissible and in showing that they're permissible. Because you give any idiot a stamp to say this is haram, and they will just go trigger happy. Haram, 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 haram. Because they get a kind of power trip out of it. But real power, they said, the Salaf said, is not in making something haram, but is in showing how it's halal. So I think these are some incredibly profound words, really, if people think about them, and especially that psychological aspect. And I'd like you to maybe think about it in your own time, that when you're given authority as well in your life, would you not feel that what I'm saying is true? That you only feel that it's really being exercised if it's in a prohibitive manner, and you do not associate it with a sense of permissiveness, like permitting things and so on. Right, so that's somebody said, is it not harder to produce evidence for permissibility? No, everything by default is permissible in Islam. That's the default setting. Al-ashya, that they are al-asl fil ashya al-ibaha, that by default, the law of defaults dictates that things are permissible. Right, so let's move on. What are some other questions that we've been looking at? Somebody had asked to speak on some gender. Shall we go to that? There's miracles to look at. What are some other questions? Will you be watching Khabib's match? I'm not really into, apart from going to the gym, I'm not personally into sports. I don't, for some reason, I just don't find it that, I might watch it, I don't know, but I'm not really into it. I don't find sports and things like that to be that, for me, entertaining. Hence, I live in a, as you can imagine, a very lonely world. I have very little to talk to with people. You know, this is another thing that tying on with that Dunning-Kruger effect. This is like another nutcase summary of that. That the I'm not saying this, that I'm not trying to say I'm that clever person, but the cleverer you become, the more dumb you sound to dumb people. You see, the smarter you become in certain things, and if you talk to dumb, the more dumb you sound to just dumb people. They're just like, this guy's so dumb, man, they're so stupid. Right, so it's so true though that it becomes, you know, you must just sound totally stupid, and you must just sound handicapped to like dumb people. They must just think, this guy must be mentally slow. Honestly, and sometimes I feel, because I feel that, I don't know, like I personally do feel that it becomes difficult to relate to certain, I mean, I could talk about many things. You know, I have a vast kind of interest in many areas, but casually, I can see difficulties sometimes. If you're not into sports, which I ain't, I'm not that much at all. In fact, I'm not into generally regular music, so that kind of goes. It becomes difficult, as you can imagine. I suppose there's always TV, movies, and stuff like that. I suppose, yeah, there's something. And that you can't just have deeper level conversations with people. I mean, you can't talk about like consciousness. You know, there's these microtubules, and they think that they may be the things that pick up on you can't talk about poetry, and you can't talk about, it becomes a lonely world, people. Right, so what else is going on? What kind of music? Maybe let's leave that for now. All my haters are avidly watching. What is he going to say? What kind of music does he listen to? I have some people so obsessed with me. It's amazing. They watch me so closely. You know. Oh, what is he going to say? What else, people? What else is going on? Right, questions. Oh, right, here's a message. I've got a message, people. As an actor, is there any scenes... Oh, Salman Shah! Salman Shah here said, as an actor... Talk about a plug right there. As an actor, Salman Shah, you nutty. You teasing us? You're trying to make us regular folk feel really insignificant. Like, you know, as an actor, so we have to go back to our miserable existence of like, insignificance. Welcome back to insignificance. While Salman Shah, as an actor, is there any scenes to act that would be considered haram? Let's, guys, group think. Let's kind of hurdle up, brainstorm. Is there anything, any possible? I think there's an entire industry of things. And for some reason, only the most bizarre come to my mind first. Either you've had a very sheltered life, which can't be true as an actor, or I'm sure you can think of those things as well. You nutty. So, anything. Oh, this one tough one, you know, this one tough. I'm struggling, you know, I'm struggling. Whoa. Dunning-Kruger effect. Salman Shah. Right, so what else? Any tips on how to make my how to make my chest? You nutty, try to tease me, try to flatter me. So, what else? When something is makruh, does it mean disliked by God? Well, I suppose that's the term people use, that the Sharia dislikes this. Basically, it's just a grey zone in saying that it's not haram. And that's what it is. Yeah, I mean, people use words like, oh, God dislikes it, as to simplify it for people. Are we not all actors in the Matrix? Bilal, right? Billy's in the house, people. Billy is in the house. All right, Cody. Right, so here's a thought experiment. I was reading up about this kid who's meant to be the smartest kid in the world, who's got a theory that this whole world, it's actually very fascinating once you start thinking about it. He feels that the whole world kind of was destroyed by the CERN experiment. So the whole, you know, the large hadron kind of colliders that we've got in Europe. So when they ran that experiment to discover the Higgs boson, he feels that they created a kind of a black hole which destroyed our universe. But we have continued in a parallel universe. But, you know, when you think about it, you think, whoa. You know, Dil ke khush rakhne ko ghalib khayal acha hai. It's interesting, fascinating, isn't it? Sometimes you think the amount of things that you think, whoa, all right, that's... But I think that's a strange mind kind of twisting theory. The naughty scenes. Yes, that's for our actor. 2 imams and 1 tasbih. 2 imams and 1 tasbih. Tawbah. Now these people are going to be, these haramis are going to be thinking, why did he laugh? How did he identify the joke? Jalon se pakad lete hain yaar. These guys, they catch you out. Yeah. Mu'adh is in the house. Ahlan wa sahlan. Apologies, question. I meant to ask, is selling dogs or puppies allowed in Islam? Selling dogs, yeah, you can sell dogs, you can sell... That's actually a question somebody had asked. Can we sell cats and dogs? And there's a hadith of what is it? Bay' al-Sinnur, haram. Like Sinnur is like a kind of wild cat, and the Prophet said it was haram. But you have to, you see, the problem is people are not thinking about the world back then. It was a different world. People didn't do things like what they do today. Like cats weren't, I mean, cats were prevalent and people did have cats as pets, but it wasn't a kind of industry or a kind of thing like the way it is today. So you can't be looking at that world without understanding it in its actual context. And once you start to realize that, you realize, oh, well, that makes sense. So when the Prophet would have said things like certain things are haram, it was reflecting a particular reality. Nobody, first of all, these kind of wild cats, people did not just have them as pets. So the person that would have purchased them, what would have they done with them? I mean, what would... So, a lot of cases, obviously, I mean, people used these things, whether they were for some kind of game, or whether they used them to kind of torture them, or whether they used them... You have to remember, people did do these kind of things. So, there's a hadith that the Prophet walked past and saw some people torturing an animal. Like they were shooting at it, kind of toying with it. So they had it caught up somewhere and they were shooting at it, but not to kill, to just injure it. And they were taking kind of like, oh, I'll get this part, watch. And a bit like almost a pool game where they're saying, okay, that pocket, watch. And they were doing that. And the Prophet kind of told them off and said, what is this? And mentioned that, look, you can't, you know, that these kind of things, and said that there is ajr in taking care of in everything that has life. So, and in fact, then several people have written books. There's an entire book written by Imam Sakhawi on how to treat animals and things like this. So my point of saying this is, when you're reading, so you pick up today Bukhari or Muslim and you say, oh, selling wild cats is haram. And the same hadith reads, Kasb al-Hajjami haram. That's the same hadith, is it not? That Kasb al-Sinnur haram or Kasb al-Hajjami haram. That Hajjam is a person who does cupping. Now cupping is not haram, but it says Kasb al-Hajjami haram. But that was a particular thing, a context. These things were very specific. Somebody doing it wrong, causing harm, doing certain things. Not that I believe hajjam is something Islamic, hijama, but I'm just saying that it's not haram to do hijama. So please think like that. Like, I think I shared this in one of my previous sessions, that my mind was blown the other day when I was, a few weeks back, I was reading up some research and came to realize things like the 4 directions and how they did not exist like that in the time of the Prophet. They didn't actually have a north and south. And just think about that for a moment, that they did not have a north and south. That how does, and the way it worked was they did have a west and east to do with the sunrise and sunset, and they would determine their left and right by always facing sunrise, the east. So whenever they spoke of the left, it was always whilst facing the sun, the place of sunrise, the east. Hence, the left is called shimal, which later on became the word for north, shimal. Now, that's just like, whoa, and hence anything on the right was south, and it was Yameen, and Yemen is south of the Hijaz. So you see, now just think of being in a world where these things don't exist, where you don't even have names for directions in those ways that we do today. It really is a different realm, like almost. Like we've got so many modern understandings, it's very hard to strip them away. When I was reading this, it really blew my mind. I was kind of thinking about it, And it was like, and I came to realize that I was reading some of the research on when directions did evolve, they were based on the wind directions. So the early Arabs, and this is in the Prophet's time, that they would refer to certain directions by certain winds that would come from there. So the wind coming from the east, it would often, it was called Sabah generally, and the wind coming from the west was called Dabur. And they named these, and the wind coming from the south was called Janub, which later becomes the name for south, Junub. Right, so they named these after some of the winds. And you see, we can't even picture a world like that today. We've got so many social constructs layered upon each other. It really is so hard to kind of envisage that world. And this is why it's important that when you go there and you start reading hadith, you have to strip away these layers of social constructs that we've got to get a more accurate maybe understanding of what the hadith would have been talking about. Cool. Somebody said Sheikh Hamza Yusuf has something beautiful on winds. Okay, I've not heard that. And this wasn't exclusive to the Arabs. There were other communities as well that did set directions based on winds as well and stuff like that. And hence the Prophet said, you see, that I have been helped by the Sabah, by the wind from the east. And Thamud were destroyed by the wind from the west. But what's this? Is FGM a Sahih Hadith, to cut part of it off? FGM, female genital mutilation. I mean, that's such a... Even the word is so horrid. This is absolutely unacceptable. Right. People, this thing of... right, so there's circumcision in Islam, in which the foreskin of the male... I feel like I'm teaching a biology class here. So, the male apparatus, as you can see, Exhibit A. We've got a model just standing there going like... So, the foreskin is what is snipped away at. Actually, and it has so many medical kind of benefits to it. Things like prevention of diseases and things like all of these kind of things. I once got into a kind of discussion stroke debate with somebody, an atheist friend from the local gym. And he was saying that, look, circumcision is mutilation. And I was like, no. And so I ended up going away and researching on circumcision. So the first thing you click is like, obviously, videos. Not. And then you're like, 4 hours later, like, oh, I got distracted and ended up on these websites. Boy, time flies, doesn't it? So I ended up doing some research, and I had no idea the amount of benefits that circumcision actually has. And this was just reading from different websites like the NHS website and other things, and the things that sometimes go wrong for people that don't have circumcision. Obviously, I mean, we can't, because we've always, as far as our memory serves, been the way we are, so it's difficult to have that understanding. But even things like, apart from just like things like on infections and stuff like this, but even just when a person is trying to usefully, let's say, deploy the apparatus, that it can actually cause difficulties with erections and suffocate on certain occasions. And the terminology is like, every guy would just be like, oh. Like, that's what you do, that's how you would not want to turn up at a hospital. The poor fella's being suffocated. Right, it's right. So this is so when you read about these things, you think, wow, okay, all these other amazing benefits to it, right? So that's anyway male circumcision, right? So then you've got this, what some people do, female circumcision. Now, what on earth is it that they're cutting? So what it is now, most Muslims do not recognize anything like this. There is a hadith. The hadith is not sahih. There is a hadith, I believe, in Abu Dawood and other places that a khatan, which is circumcision for a guy, for a male, is sunnah. What khafad makramatun lin nisa. That khafad is female circumcision, is a kind of like an honoring for women. Now, what did khafad actually mean? So you will see certain books like the Maliki madhab, for example, the school of Medina, the Hanafi madhab, which are that's the majority of the Muslims in the world. These two put together, they did not recognize this as an Islamic act at all. Hence, none of the countries, Muslim countries, would ever even understand what you're talking about if you said that in a country that has Maliki fiqh or Hanafi fiqh. Now, in the Maliki fiqh textbooks, they will write that this was to do with most likely the labia or a certain amount of skin if it protruded in a non-aesthetic way. So it was more to do with aesthetics. So Hattab, for example, in his commentary on Mukhtasar Khalil, says that there's certain races and certain people that amongst them women may have a lot of a kind of like a protruding, and it may be part of the labia and stuff like this that protrudes, and it's found in certain races, and if they decided to kind of tidy that cosmetically, and that's what they were doing, and some people were doing it only, and it was such a minority, and hence they saw it as like an honoring for them. But what you've got in some of these countries is they just kind of cut the clitoris, which is shocking. I mean, that is nothing but just pure mutilation, and utterly haram as far as any understanding that I would have of this deen. And I was surprised to learn that it's actually quite a practice, not only in certain parts of Africa, but in countries like Malaysia and I think parts of Indonesia, where you've got a Shafi'i fiqh presence. But not all Shafi'i countries seem to recognize it, but some of these countries do. And I hope that they kind of like catch up and realize that what the hell are we doing here? Yeah, so that's on FGM. And it's not an Islamic practice. It may be given an Islamic veneer, but it's not Islamic. Why did they say it was makrama, and what does that even mean? So, once again, I don't believe that the hadith is sahih to begin with. But secondly, a makrama would mean a sense of like something, like a kind of a kindness to. And hence it was cosmetic. So you do get in the West as well, under cosmetic surgery, some women will undergo surgery where they kind of have the labia. This is where I need exhibit B. Or I need a model here to say, well, exhibit B. So the labia, those of you that don't know what that is, yeah, you've obviously lived a blessed life. Blessed. Blessed in a different sense, but blessed. MashaAllah. MashaAllah, brother. Right, so with some of the labia, the kind of the lips, if you like, of that of the vagina will protrude in a certain way, and it will come across not very aesthetic, not very pleasing to the eye. Art art is in the eye of the beholder, but it may look like, what the hell is going on here? May look like, you know, like somebody, like a war veteran coming out. There's been a grenade and an explosion, and so for those people where it's genetic, that they have, in this part of the world, they will undergo cosmetic surgery to kind of neaten up, fix up some, to improve the aesthetics. It's all about the image, right? So similarly, that's what they would do in the, that's what that makrama thing would have meant. Ah, well, like the sleeve of a wizard. And perhaps on a good day, laser eye surgery, okay. Yeah, Chris, it wasn't your eyes, it actually did look like that. This bechara, Chris, instead of doing that cosmetic surgery over there, he's been doing surgery on his eyes. He's like, I need laser eye surgery. Oh God. It's like I don't get it. I'm sure this is the second time I'm having eye surgery now. I mean, surely it should be. Ah, well. What else is going on? Let's take another question. Right, miracles. Shall we look at miracles, people? Ah, right. Ah, bloody hell. I'd gone to the gym and had the thing on, the watch on, recording the activity, and it still was still going at it. Right, is shirk forgivable? Is shirk forgivable? Look, Allah can forgive whatever He wants. Okay, whatever He wants. Right, so, and I know people will say, oh, but Allah says in the Quran, Inna Allah la yaghfir, Inna Allah yaghfiru dhunuba jami'a. But He does mention, in a certain place, Inna Allah la yaghfiru an yushraka bihi. That Allah does not forgive that you do shirk with Him. But once again, you see, you have to look at the context. That this is addressing a particular zone in the Arabian Peninsula, where it was the kind of last bastion of this oppressive shirk, and hence there's strong words being uttered against shirk because of what it's kind of causing, the whole superstitious culture and things like this. Otherwise, Allah can do as He pleases. Everybody, the belief or the creed, if you want, of most Muslims is if Allah wants, everybody can go to paradise. So, there you go. Right, somebody said, do you keep in touch with your teachers from Pakistan? I mean, not as much as maybe I'd like to. You know, sometimes I'll exchange greetings through people, or say, you know, extend my salams and stuff like that, but not as much as that. But then there's many reasons for that. Obviously, those kind of teachers were not really your young kind of social media people. They're not the kind of people that would be on social media so much. And then, yeah, so that's it really. And yeah, they might freak out with some of my, they might go, what the hell is this, that? Oh, we knew this guy's going to be a deviant. I remember this one, he wasn't a main teacher, but I had this supervisor kind of teacher. So in your iftar, when you're doing your fatwa, you have a, like a supervisor. He watches over you. And so, and then you have main kind of muftis that sit inside and they cross-check your fatwas and things like that. So this supervisor, he would he'd kind of do the rounds sometimes, see what you're reading and stuff. So you're doing your own research, and he found all these other books which I had on my desk, and you realize they're kind of non-curriculum books, like, as in they're Islamic books, but they're not part of the syllabus or anything like that. So he called me and said, whoa, what's all of this going on? Right, so I said, what? He's like, oh, you know, you're reading your own books and you're doing things and this external research, and I'm warning you now, you know, you're gonna go off the track. Oh, if he saw me now, he'd feel so justified. He'd be like, well, I told you. That's all because you read his own books. He was like, oh, you know, such and such person. And they used to really hate Maududi, by the way. Now, I haven't actually read hardly anything of Maududi's, but still, they used to hate him with a passion. And I remember him saying, you know, oh, you know, Maududi used to read his own books. He used to do his independent research. And I said, well, okay. And they said, well, you know, so-and-so, such a saintly figure, he had a dream. And in that dream, he saw Maududi in his grave. I said, okay. And he said, and his face had turned into that of a lizard. And I said, well, okay, is there a moral to this story? Try not to let your face turn into a lizard. Reptilian evolution. I'm trying to. Is there a punchline better still, or is there? I mean, oh God. Well, fun and games, people. So, do you teach Alamiya in UK? I don't teach Alamiya in the UK now, but I will be teaching something. I used to teach certain classes, and then you just can't be bothered. And then now I was thinking to myself, I should start teaching maybe some Arabic, maybe some fiqh, maybe some Arabic. I would like to teach Arabic, but not the total basic, more at slightly advanced kind of level. Hanji, ish at-tari, alright. What do you think of Sir Syed Ahmed Khan? I think he was an amazing individual. I don't know too much about him, but I know he was an amazing individual and he was very enlightened and things like that. What is your opinion on Shia who believe Ali is an incarnation of Allah? I mean, I think that's absurd, to be honest with you, believing. And I don't think, I wouldn't think that, you know, even 99%, I could be totally wrong. This is one of those, you know, when 76.5% of all statistics are just made up on the spot. This is one of those, but I don't think, I would assume that maybe 99%, if I could say that, of Shia would not really believe things like that. So, I mean, I find that concept absurd, to think that Ali radiallahu anhu was God. Dude, bro, most people still can't read backwards. Yep, Richard Babbitt, you got it, man, you got it. لماذا لا تريد أن تدرس مختصر خليل؟ خائف أنت؟ لا، بل سأبدأ بمختصر خليل إن شاء الله. مختصر خليل is a fiqh text in Maliki fiqh. So when I teach, I'm going to have to begin with Mukhtasar Khalil now, because some people feel that why doesn't he teach Mukhtasar Khalil? Chalo, Mukhtasar Khalil it is then. I'll teach Mukhtasar Khalil. When are you at the Ark again? We got to do a session at the Ark pretty soon. Let me chat to the lads. Maybe in the next 1-2 weeks perhaps. Let's see if we can do a session at the Ark. Rash, how you doing, man? Ahlan wa sahlan. Anta Uswati, ya Mufti. Chris Johnson. Much appreciated. That's it, man. That's it. Chris Johnson. What a trolling profile, though. That's a trolling profile. Chris Johnson. Talking about writing in Arabic. Nima Karimi, please teach Arabic. Yeah, I'd like to, actually. Yeah, but at a slightly advanced level. I can't be doing this whole Hada Baytun kind of stuff. I just don't have the motivation to do that kind of stuff. A bit maybe at some more depth. I actually brought back these books so I bought back quite a few books just recently. So this is Mughni al-Labib by Ibn Hisham, an amazing, once again, a kind of a grammar text, a very advanced kind of grammar text. Right, you've got the Mazhar. This is about language as well by Suyuti. You've got Rasail al-Jahid. This is Jahid, who was although he was a Mu'tazili scholar, but these are his letters. He has some, or articles, if you can call them. This I just thought, well, I'll read if it's interesting. Imam San'ani's kind of choices and preferences on Fatawa and stuff like that. You've got, let me see, this is Mughni al-Labib again. Right, so this was an interesting one, Sharh al-Jumal, and this one was by Ibn al-Fakhar, the Maliki, and al-Jumal was a grammar text that was taught in Al-Andalus quite a bit, actually. It was the thing to teach for Arabic grammar in Al-Andalus in the Iberian Peninsula, and so I bought actually 2 commentaries on that. One's by Ibn al-Fakhar, and I think I got, was it Ibn Asfur's or... But yeah, so there's quite a few texts here on language and stuff like that. Yeah, but right, let's focus. In your opinion, are the Molvis who dress in Molvi garb, topi, dari, kurta in the West fall under the hadith of being rewarded for 100 martyrs? So let me just repeat that for the people. So, in my understanding, the Molvis, the kind of the clergy who wear that kind of garb, they wear the shalwar kameez and the topi and stuff like that. Do they get the reward of 100 martyrs? If you mean by that, by those people whose religion they kill off. So they've killed like the religion of 100 people. Yeah, they definitely get that reward. What a joke. Is that what they think? Boy, I got some bad news for them. When they've been sacrificing their lives for... No, right, so okay. Shall we take a look at miracles, people? Right, so miracles. Okay, before we go to miracles, a quick question on queries. Right, guys, just a quick message for anybody that does reach out to me to ask me any questions or things like this. Look, first of all, I'd like to say that I'm very happy to deal with people's questions and things like that. It is good if you introduce yourself slightly when you do reach out to me. I'm very particular like that, by the way. Especially if I can't see who you are. Because I just can't... I feel that, one, I'd like to know who it is that is asking. So introduce yourself. And this is especially... This goes 100% for... This is just a preference if it's on social media. I prefer it that way on social media. It's not mandatory, but I prefer it. But if somebody somehow gets hold of my phone number, which I'm not that, to be fair, before I was very kind of casual about people kind of calling me or texting me. And I don't know whether it's just with time. Now I'm not so keen on things like that anymore. I prefer stuff like social media. They ask me questions on social media. And because the thing with things like WhatsApp and all this, and I just feel that, you know, people ask the dumbest of stuff. And it's so annoying sometimes. And then they know that you're blanking. Because they're like, oh, right, so he's been online and he's... he just decided not to answer my question. And you know, with things like WhatsApp now, or stuff like that. I feel that when people do, like, so I'll get sometimes a text message from someone, or I'll get a message saying, Salam, what is this question like this? And I will say, do you mind introducing yourself? And I will actually say to people, on purpose, I will say, give a full detailed introduction. And if you can't be bothered, neither can I in responding to you. So that's it by phone. And you have to understand, because by phone, I don't even know who they are at all. So, you know, I just feel that, well, that's fair, because they, you know, I'm at a disadvantage here. Like, I don't even know who I'm talking to. At least on social media, I can click on their profile and see what it is. So, yeah, so that's the first thing. Just do introduce yourselves, by the way. But secondly, guys, I really want to say that, ask for a CV, ask for, send photos. No, from this angle. Give me a twirl. And you got Qari Saab doing a twirl. Right, so this, I really want to stress a point. Not that point. I want to stress this point that I'm about to say. That is that, guys, please, do a bit of research for yourself. Like, I will say to, sometimes people will message me on social media and they'll say like, oh, I was just wondering, can you answer a question on music, for example? And I will say that, look, I've got a video clip on this on YouTube. I've got a detailed video clip. People will ask me, can you speak about riba or loans? And I'll say, I've got a detailed video clip on this on YouTube. They'll ask me, can we eat this kind of meat? Can we do this? And I've got a detailed video clip on YouTube answering it. So they will say, oh, can you send it to me? And I'll be like, no, why don't you just go to YouTube and watch it yourself? And so they will say, oh, how do I find it? Please, people, please, for the love of God. You know, before those few brain cells kind of like just wither away due to no usage, how about you type my name and then you type that keyword and it will just come right up. So if it was about music, for example, you just write Mufti Abu Layth and write music and it will just come right up. Or if you just write the goddamn keyword. I mean, this is not rocket science. And they'll be like, I can't find it. And you know, first, I'm going to be honest with you, I thought this was because they were just being lazy. And that would sometimes irritate me. Then I came to realize, it dawned on me, right, that these people are not necessarily lazy. They generally are that, you know, they generally don't have these kind of skills, how to find something, how to research something, that they are actually that, they're actually that dumb, people. And no, don't take this the wrong way. I'm trying to help them by trying to raise the standards. I'm trying to raise them out of the dumbness. I'm trying to say, guys, put the keywords, okay? Search, okay? It's not rocket science. We need to kind of cultivate these basic skills. Seriously, because I've come to learn that it's not actually laziness. There is as well with some, but with many people, they just genuinely don't know. And you're thinking, God damn, you know what? You're thinking, Rehne de yaar. Don't worry about this mas'ala. Don't worry about it. You know, don't worry. I'm sure the angels have you in that special category anyway. They're like, oh, this guy's just trying. He should just enjoy his time. You know? He should. Don't worry about it. You're in that special Special category. Ah. So, right. Guys, now let's move on to this question about miracles. Miracles, a case against reality. Right. I've been asked this on many occasions, that why do I have an issue with miracles? I do not have an issue with miracles. Okay, just to start off with. It's just that miracles, and we'll go into the definition of them in just a moment, but miracles don't happen the way people think of miracles, as in like these sci-fi kind of like, or totally unbelievable events in that sense. Right, I was having a conversation with Hanif, if he's on Facebook now, a very philosophical, deep thinking individual, and he said to me, look, I don't understand why you have an issue or you struggle to accept miracles. Many people from other, very deep thinkers and so on, other traditions, other faiths, non-faiths, don't have an issue with miracles. So why is it that you feel, whereas you can accept things like consciousness and quantum mechanics, and you can accept all this kind of stuff, and how, like, I do feel that there's, that there's some kind of connection we as human beings have, that there's some kind of, like, I feel a unified field of consciousness maybe, that we somehow are connected and things like this at a very low level, and if you can accept things like that, then why do you feel that miracles are such an issue? So, right, so I've been asked this question on so many occasions that I feel that, look, let me answer it once again. Right, now, miracles, just to define what we mean by miracles, okay, I have no problem with miracle. Just means like an extraordinary event or something that is almost unbelievable. In that sense, there's miracles happening around us all the time. We're not talking about miracles like that, like as in somebody was about to be a part of a tragic accident, but they got saved. That's a miracle. These kind of things are not what these people are referring to, the religious people, when they say miracles. They're referring to miracles that defy the laws of, let's say, physics, defy the laws of nature, defy the laws of the world as we know them in an everyday setting. Why? Because they believe that there's some historical narratives, some stories which they will attribute to prophets that they feel were miraculous. Therefore, we must believe in these things. Otherwise, it compromises their faith. This is what they feel. Now, I've answered that, look, I've explained that that's just a misreading of those events. That's all. You've misunderstood the stories of the Quran. You have to remember that the Quran was addressing a people who seemed to have a very good knowledge of those stories. That's why the stories are always so brief. Allah always says, "Wadhkur fil kitab," and remember in the scriptures when it says this, that the audience are a people who seem to be very familiar with these stories and narratives. So keep that thought in mind. Now, first of all, the law-defying events, why do I have a problem with accepting them? So, for example, things like, let's say, gravity, it just will not exist anymore. I believe that that's absurd, right? So it's things like that. Why do I have an issue with this? Because these things do not happen in the world around us. Okay, so look around you in the world. It doesn't happen like that. Things like that do not occur. So I'm not going to say, well, oh no, I believe in them, because there's a premise in saying, look, God, inna Allah ala kulli shayin qadir. Allah is all powerful, and that we accept. So this is the logic. If Allah is all powerful, then He's powerful enough to defy the laws of physics, of course. So they say, well, there you go, you've been caught out. Think, oh yeah. Well, that's not how it works, you see. So let's Let me unpack this today. Right. First of all, we need to understand something. Why do I believe this? I believe this because of the holistic reading of the Quran. Anybody who reads the Quran holistically he takes away several instructions from the Quran. The Quran responds to humans on many occasions in telling us, oh, when we want answers on how things happen in this world, Allah says, قُلْ سِيرُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ فَانْظُرُوا. Travel in the earth and look at the earth around you. Allah tells us time and time again in the Quran, سِيرُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ فَانْظُرُوا كَيْفَ بَدَأَ الْخَلْقِ. You want to see how creation began? Why don't you look around you in the earth? Do you not see how the rain comes down, how this happens? Do you not see how the camel was created? Do you not see how certain things, how the winds carry the clouds and how this happens and that happens? And do you not see how plants emerge from the earth? And Allah is constantly reminding us or bringing our attention to nature, to observe nature around us. The only reason He would do that is if there is some consistency to nature. If there isn't consistency, then that's a useless exercise. God telling us, oh look, why don't you observe nature? Oh, by the way, there's no consistency to nature anyway. Then that's an absurd command. Then Allah is commanding us to do something that is an absurdity. But it's not, because there is a kind of persistence to the world around us. So when we observe it, we can learn from it. Oh, right, okay, this is how this works. These are the forces. Now, okay, so that's the thing. That's the first underlying principle, that Allah Himself tells us that these laws, that the world around us has been set there with its laws by God. Now, God does not then contradict His own laws, because He's told us to observe these laws. Okay, so that's the first most fundamental principle to understand here. Secondly, we all know in our everyday lives that these laws stand. So nobody will kind of jump from a 25-story building thinking, oh, well, maybe God, will suspend the law of gravity for me today. Inna Allah ala kulli shayin qadir. Nobody thinks like that. Everybody knows that is death. You do not do things like that. Everybody knows that when you drop something, it falls. They don't think, oh, well, this time I'll just try it, but maybe the laws of, gravity will be suspended, because God will just suspend them for me. Because it never happens. It's never happened around us. We look around us, none of these events happen. Right, so, okay, are any of these things happening? So people will say fire doesn't have to burn. Of course it does, because that's the inherent quality. That's how fire is a result of combustion. It is a result of heat, okay, which is the combustion principle. These things, that is what fire is a result of. So to say, well, oh no, but no, I don't think it's, so God, if He wants, He can make the fire it's a fire, but it's not really, you see, but that never happens in the world. And the people arguing this also accept that it never happens in the world. But they're only arguing it because they feel that there's a particular story that they want to justify. They don't believe today, like if their child fell into fire, they wouldn't think, oh well, maybe God would today not allow the fire to burn my child. Of course they wouldn't think that. They're not stupid. They know that the fire is going to burn. They wouldn't get a bunch of money and chuck it into a fire and think, well, maybe today it's not going to burn because it doesn't really have the quality of burning. Of course they believe that it's going to burn. They would be totally stupid not to believe that. So the issue is that even these people who advocate these things themselves know that in the world around us, that stuff that it's as real as real can get. These stories don't happen in the world around us. Not in this sense. They too know that deep down. Right, so okay, so we understand this. Then we move on to miracles. Now, I would like to ask a question. That is that, what was the purpose of a miracle? I asked these people, like I asked this person, what is the purpose of a miracle? So they say, well, you see, because this is all theologians speak now. Because remember, nowhere in the Quran have they been told to believe in miracles like this. This is because the theologians have written books that have told them, you must believe in this if you want to be part of this group, or we will excommunicate you. So the question is, what was the purpose? Surely if God was doing something, there must be a purpose. They say yes, there was a purpose. Because we asked them, first of all, is there a purpose to miracles, or are these just hapless events? Are these just kind of just events that are purposeless and just chaotic? And they will say, no, they have a purpose. Fine. What is the purpose of a miracle? So they will say that a miracle, it is to testify, to stand as a testimony to the truthfulness of the prophet. So you say, well, okay, let's just roll with that for a moment. So it's to prove that the message that the messenger is carrying is truthful. They will say yes. So okay, well, hold on right there. Because the rules that you give me for a miracle, they must be consistent through and through. I don't want, there's no point saying, if I ask you, what is the definition of a book? And you say, well, the definition is that, it has pages, or it has... And that's fine, because, and it contains information of some sort, because that's what books have. But if I say to you, well, a book is... this particular one has a picture of a plant. And I say, well, it's something that has a picture of a plant. And you say, well, but this one doesn't. I say, yeah, but I was talking about that one. No, but when you give a definition, it must be consistent. So when you say that, okay, a miracle is to prove the truthfulness of a prophet. Problem number one. Okay. Most prophets were never accepted by the people. So that serves without a purpose. That means that just failed. Because most prophets were never accepted by their people. Problem number one. Problem number two is most of the miracles, like if you take Moses, alayhi salam, let's say the splitting of the sea in that sense, doing these things with the Israelites, they were already believers. So they may say, yes, okay, that's true. So there was nothing to prove the truthfulness. So they may say, yes, that's true, but it was to reaffirm to the congregation, to these people. So you think, well, okay, let's roll with that. Tell me, in the Quran, there's a verse of the Quran where the kuffar of Quraysh are asking the Prophet, just give us a miracle. Just make a spring appear from here. That's all we're asking. One spring. Make a river. Can you make a garden? Can you get something to come down from the clouds? Can you do a miracle? Do a miracle. That's all we're asking. And God says, no. God says, tell them I'm just a human like you. Why are you asking me? إِنَّمَا أَنَا بَشَرٌ مِثْلُكُمْ. I'm just a bashar like you. I'm just a human being like you. I can't make these things happen. So here is an opportunity where the kuffar of Makkah are asking for a miracle. Show it to us and we will believe. But God refuses. But He will allow it in places where they've already believed. Let's just say, so people will say, oh, but there were miracles. Because I asked this person as well, and this is another question, what is the miracle of the Prophet? Of our Prophet? What is the miracle of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam? And because in all honesty, what are you going to say? This belief that the prophets always came with miracles, where did you get this from? It's not in the Quran that you must believe that prophets came with miracles. This was told to you by theologians. So when you say, what was the miracle of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what will you say? Because there's nothing really to say. Like, because what are you going to say? Oh, well, he split the moon. Well, first of all, okay, many theologians haven't accepted that as well. Like, they've said that that was just, it appeared that way. But let's roll with it. Let's roll with it. Let's say if the Prophet had split the moon, as in it actually split, not just appeared like that due to an eclipse. Let's say it actually was split. And I've got a detailed video on that, on explaining how people like Ibn Ashur and others explain that it was most likely an eclipse and things like that, not an actual splitting. Let's say he did split the moon. Where was this? In Medina. That's where it states in the hadith, where people were already Muslim. So what was the purpose of this miracle? Because I thought you said miracles are done to prove that the messenger is telling the truth. Why not do it in a place where they're actually asking for a miracle? Why just do it amongst the congregation who are already followers? That makes no sense. And they say, yeah, well, the Prophet can't choose the miracle. You think, okay, but God can. And I'm sure miracles have a purpose. And if you're going to say, well, the purpose of the miracle is to show the truthfulness, then there was a demand that show your truthfulness, bring forth a spring. And the Prophet's told in the Quran, I can't do that. You know, what are you asking me? I'm just a human being. Now, here we're being told, no, but miracles are happening, that these are the miracles then. So it doesn't make any sense when you look at it. You're thinking, well, surely there must be a purpose to all of this. Like if we're going against the whole law, like God has told you, if you want to understand the world, think about it, observe nature. Now that you are observing nature, God decides to violate or go against that law of nature, let's say. There must be a reason, such a great reason. And the reason is what? That the people already believe. Let's just show them a miracle. They already believe anyway. So it doesn't really add up in that sense. And if you said it's the... And even, you know, I know as Muslims we say that the Quran is miraculous. It is miraculous in the impact it causes for the faithful. But if you're going to say that the Quran is the miracle, in all honesty, even that will have problems. It will be challenged because, first of all, the Quran never ever claimed to be the miracle of Islam. It never makes this claim itself. Theologians say this, and I accept that. As a Muslim, I accept it as a Muslim, kind of like as an honorific. But if we're trying to be just very scrupulous with assessing things, then the Quran never makes that claim. The other thing is that the Quran was taught in Mecca, where it was the Makki surahs are the most eloquent surahs of the Quran. And it was taught in Mecca for 13 years, which was much longer than in Medina, which was 10 years. And yet the Meccans never embraced Islam. So if it was this undeniable, the language of it was undeniable kind of miracle, then surely all the people around it would have embraced it. But they didn't. So this goes to show that, look, it is not that this, who told us that prophets come with miracles? Because the Quran never claimed this, that, by the way, all Muslims must believe, here are some beliefs. Prophets are sent with miracles. No, it said prophets are sent with signs. A sign is separate. I mean, it is different. A sign of something. A sign for the people. Not a miracle that will now break the laws of physics or do things. So the person, and this is another a great example. The person said, well, you know, what do you say about the camel of Salih in the Quran? And I said, well, this is a perfect example. There is not one verse in the Quran that highlights a miraculous nature about the camel of Saleh. This is all stories and weak hadith. The Quran just mentions that Saleh saying to his people that here is a camel, and this camel is seen as a sign and as a symbol. Do not harm this camel. And they choose to harm it. It doesn't mention anything miraculous like the camel jumped out of a rock and all these kind of stories. There's not a single verse in the Quran. Bring it. Where is this verse? There is nothing. It's just that because the story exists, you're assuming it's in the Quran. It's not. So my point of saying this is that, yes, look, we do accept we do accept that there are extraordinary events that occur, and they continue to occur, that sometimes save people's lives, that sometimes, like the splitting of the sea, the way it did, and I explained in a detailed video how there are certain, at the Gulf of Aqaba, how the wind and the storm kind of gushes, and it can cause this, and it has caused it on other events as well. That there are natural explanations to these events. The stories in the Quran were mentioned very briefly because they were to an audience who were very familiar, because the Quran constantly says, and remember when this happened, and remember when and remember from the scripture this event. And they mentioned with such brevity because the audience are very familiar with these narratives, right? And another important reason, I was asked that, look, well, why would you stress this? And I said, because, look, I feel that it's not only very realistic, but I feel it's very hopeful for people. Because people are suffering today. And they have, like, let's say, people, like I spoke earlier on about the people in Kashmir. You could say the people in Palestine. You could say the people in Burma. The people in maybe this, there's the fires that were, in the Amazon forests and other places. Wherever there's suffering, there's so much suffering in the world, and people ask, well, why isn't God? If these kind of interventions happen, that were actual interventions, like there's a fire going on and it's burning, but nobody's getting hurt. If these kind of things happen, then why ain't they happening today? Because why doesn't God care for these people? Because this is then the question. If it was 3,000 years ago and it was the Israelites, God, according to this story then, is prepared to bend the laws of physics and throw them out the window just to help these Israelites, who by the narrative seem to be very ungrateful. The children of Israel seem to be, like, if we're going to be honest, the children of Israel come across as an ungrateful bunch. Like, they're constantly arguing with prophets. Sometimes they've attacked prophets. Sometimes they've killed prophets in the Quran. Sometimes they're trying to take the mick. They're trying to be very sarcastic with the prophets. They're trying to, totally ungrateful. They cross the sea and then they're like, oh, let's take another idol god and let's do this. But for the children of Israel, God is prepared to bend all the laws of physics and throw them out the window. And for people dying today, why can't God help them then? So this is the point, because God does not intervene in that way. And he never has. So this actually, I know for some people it may seem like, it's a bit dull. But it's actually very realistic. And in this reality is hope for many people. That yes, God does intervene in many ways, there's strata, there's layers. Divine intervention in ways that has natural explanations. And that still continues to happen today. That many people, their lives are touched. Like sometimes they are about to be in an accident, but they've been saved. Miraculously. And that continues to touch our lives till this very day. And that is how Allah intervenes in this world, if we are to accept divine intervention or ask about it. But not in this other way. And there never has been like that. to me, that makes absolute sense. Maybe this will, for some people, to some people, they may find what I'm saying totally absurd. It's nothing new there. A lot of what I say may be absurd for some people. But I feel that this genuinely, it is very realistic, and I feel that although it may sound counterintuitive, but it actually offers more hope. That's my understanding. Allahu A'lam. Right, I tell you what, people, we've been going on, quite a while. Okay, let's wrap this up. Right, so people, and those of you that feel that I offer too much, some people feel that I offer too much of a merciful view of God. I offer too much of a merciful view of God. See, but that is my God. That's the kind of God I believe in. So I don't, this other kind of, I don't actually believe in that kind of a God that some of these people believe in. Very, like, a kind of bitter, and somebody who gets angry easily, and he's like, somebody who's like throws it almost like a tantrum or things like that. I don't believe in a God I'll be honest with you. I've never claimed to believe in a God like that. So when people say, why are you making God appear so merciful and so, I'm not making God. That is God. He is the most merciful. So Allah says, وَمَا يَفْعَلَ اللَّهُ بِعَذَابِكُمْ. That's a verse of the Quran. What is Allah going to get out of punishing you? He's just calling you to gratitude, that's all. So people, this is, and I feel sometimes it's our own views that we have, because I spoke earlier on about authority. We have this very punitive, this kind of very draconian way of looking at things, and we project that onto God. You see, we make gods out of things. In some ways we make ourselves, and these people who are commanding and telling people off, and in some ways, are they not playing God themselves? Are they not themselves kind of like becoming rivals? I ask you, because if they, dig deep into their souls, they will find that perhaps they are. That this, in the words of Mir Taqi Mir, the legend of Urdu, who's called actually the god of Urdu, Khuda Sukhan, he says that Tuji pe e but nahi munhasir. That Tuji pe e but, that it's not restricted to you, this idol. Tuji pe e but nahi munhasir, jise humne puja khuda kar diya. Allah, that whosoever we worshipped, we turned him into a god. That this, I know that in some ways it depends how you look at this poem, but in many ways it's amazing. It's it can be seen in some ways. I suppose people might think, oh, is he trying to challenge notions of theology? Or in some ways they may think he's speaking to a beloved, somebody he loves, and he does do that in other lines as well. There's that in other poems. There's the where he says Parastish ki yahan tak ke e but tujhe nazar mein sabu ki khuda kar chale, that we devoted ourselves to you. In this particular poem, he is talking to a woman. He's saying, I devoted myself to you to that extent. Ki yahan tak, to this extent, that nazar mein sabu ki, sabu is the old way of saying sabi, that in the eyes of everyone, before I left, or as I departed from this world, they took you to be God. Nazar mein sabu ki khuda kar chale. That everybody thought that, wow, the way this person was devoted to you. So in some poems he is saying that in a way that is to a woman. But I think in this particular poem where he says that tuji pe e but nahi munhasir, that it's not restricted to you, O idol, jise humne puja khuda kar diya, that whosoever we worshipped, or whatsoever we worshipped, became a god. And I think in that is also another mystery of the wonder and the amazing capabilities of human beings that have really been bestowed and given to us by God, and something to think about. People, with that, let's wrap this up. As always, it's been awesome. Right, so it's been awesome. Take very good care of yourselves. Till next week, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Any messages, do reach out to me. Stay blessed, people. Over and out.